safe the best way I know how.
In this video, we dive into the movie Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. We will discuss the storyline, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and character. Additionally, we will cover the movie's production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide reviews and share personal reaction. So let's get started. Several other movies saw bumps in revenue but began small over the extended New Year's weekend. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom just managed to stay afloat as it enters 2024, crossing the $50 million milestone. The superhero sequel has garnered a non-too-shabby $258 million globally, taking it past the Marvel's $205 million lifetime total. Aquaman 2 delivered one of the lowest debuts in the checkered history of the now-defunct DC Extended Universe, and it seems like the mixed review and plentiful alternatives on offer have impacted the film's performances, especially in the domestic market. Aquaman 2 is yet to pass the $80 million marks it still set in 10 year days of releasing. However, the DC film is being saved by overseas market, where it has generated $173 million so far, most of it coming from China. However, at this point, there can only be so much more air left in this lung. The best that it can conceivably do to surpass a lifetime global haul of fellow superhero underperformer The Flash to $70 million. Aquaman 2 can also find some solace in the fact that it has now outperformed the recent DC dudes Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and the Blue Beetle. Both of which were also impacted by perceived behind-the-scenes chores that has consumed the franchise. Started a decade ago with Man of Steel, the DCU experienced major ups and downs, with a revolving chore of executive assuming control and then jumping ship. The highly publicized reboot under the stewardship of James Gunn and Peter Safran essentially spelled doom for the old leadership remaining film. The series will start afresh in 2025 with Gunn's Superman legacy starring David Cornswet and Rachel Bonshan, and the entire industry would hope that the audiences reignite their love for superhero movies. By then, the genre has witnessed a mass loss of that, with a series of superb reclasses across the DC Marvel SL. Aquaman 2 is further proof that, unless the quality is excellent, the average viewer is no longer interested in the sampling big budget superhero fare. Only a handful of superhero movies, such as Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse performed well in 2003. Directed by James Wan and starring Jason Momoa and Patrick Wilson, Aquaman 2 serves as a sequel to 2018 Aquaman, also directed by Wan. The first Aquaman movie emerged as a super surprise blockbuster grossing over $1.1 billion worldwide over the course of its run. Aquaman 2, on the other hand, will challenge allies through the looking glass for the biggest drop of between sequel. Stay tuned to the collider of more update. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom recently met a box office milestone that helped make it a nice capstone to the DCU. The movie is a direct sequel to the surprise hit Aquaman, which is the highest grossing DCU film by a wide margin. This likely helped create more interest in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom despite the fact that the DCU will not be continuing after it. Some audience members may also have been curious to see the conclusions of the DCU, which started back in 2013 with Man of Steel. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has now made approximately $434 million at the global box office. According to the number, this makes it the first DCU movie since the original Aquaman to make over $400 million. This means Aquaman and Lost Kingdom is also the highest grossing DCU movie since 2018. Hopefully his upswing in box office number can continue over into the new DCU robot that will launch in theaters next year with the Superman legacy. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has the 7th highest worldwide box office in the DCEU. This places it almost directly in the middle of the pack in terms of overall ticket sale. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom continue the DCU trend of sequels underperforming. It is still the DCU direct sequel that performed their best at the box office. It is the second best performing sequel of Batman vs Superman. Dawn of Justice can be considered a sequel to Man of Steel. Another big achievement for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom was its ability to break with the general downward trend of DCU movies since the first Aquaman. In general, besides Aquaman, the DCU box office has been on steady decline since the release of Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice in 2016. The fact that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom was able to jump so far back up the first after some major financial disappointment in the same year like Shazam, Furry of the Gods, a testament to the film's success and the staying power of the first Aquaman. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom opened to $80 million at the international box office, which is not at super considering those tickets are on par with the eventual big budget superhero disappointments like The Flash, The Marvels, and the Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, the comic book sequel, starring Jason Momoa as the King of Atlantis and directed by James Wan, has generated $120 million globally to start, including a week $40 million in North America. The Warner Bros. And DC film cost $205 million and is shaping up to be the latest underperforming tentpole of DC following this year's sharing of Miss Fries, The Flash, Shazam, Freddy of the Gods, and the Blue Beetle. Beyond the terrible reviews and Metricore Odyssey score, Aquaman 2 is struggling because it has been positioned as a lame duck in the DC Extended Universe. It's the final installment before DC's new bosses, James Gunn and Peter Safran. Reset is sprawling superhero universe, likely without Momo's ruler of the underwater kingdom. The first film, 2018 Aquaman, debuted at a time when comic book movies could do no wrong at the box office. It became a massive commercial success with $81 million internationally and $1.14 million globally. The original was particularly huge in China, opening to $93 million and ending its run with $292 million. But Hollywood movies have not worked in China since the pandemic, and The Lost Kingdom was no exception. The sequel did not come everywhere close to the popularity of the original, bringing in the just $30 million over the weekend from 28 140 seconds. Outside of the Middle Kingdom, at the top international market where Mexico with $5 million, Indonesia and $3.6 million, France with $3.2 million, and the UK with $3 million. Today, the Chinese market is a fraction of what it was for American movies, says David Gross, who runs a movie consulting firm Franchise Entertainment Research. Overall foreign business should still be good, just not outstanding. Warners may not be breaking out ably for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, but the studio has more to be celebrated within Wonka, which crossed the $250 million market from 2 weeks of release. The prequel story, starring Timothy Chalamet as the eccentric calculator Willy Wonka, added $33.2 million from 77 international market, a scant 33% drop from the prior weekend. Wonka has generated $171 million overseas and $254 million to date. It's a Swedish license. The film cost $125 million. Elsewhere, Universal's and Illumination's animated comedy Migration has underwhelmed at the international box office with $22 million for 2 weeks. It opened in North America with $17 million over the 4 days holiday, bringing its worldwide total to $34 million. The film, written by Mike White and featuring the voice cast of Kumail, Elizabeth Banks, and Aquafina, cost a reasonable $70 million, but the studio is hoping that Migration enjoys the staying power of recent family movies, such as Puss in Boots, The Lost Witch, and Pixar's Elemental. The adventures about ducks who get lost as they head south for winter has generated positive reviews and audience score, which bodes well for its holiday run. After 5 years, the best superhero movie of 2018 and did not win an Oscar is finally back with a sequel. Aquaman remains the high point of the DCU, a fantastical adventure movie with great world building, cool performances, and excellent horror scene, and some of the most bonkers moments in the superhero genre, like a drums playing outcups on army of grey people, and Julie Andrews playing an aquatic kaiju. Now Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom double down on everything its predecessor did by letting them Van go full inners. It expands the world of Aquaman by bringing in a magical thread and introducing DC's answer to murder. It has a poignant story about the current threat to the environment, and it also gives us a fun road trip movie with Jason Momoa and Patrick Wilson as Baking my brother that once fought of the dead. With this being not only the end of the Aquaman series, but of the DC's expanded universe at large. There is a lot riding on Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom to deliver a satisfying conclusion. The movie deals with the Archer Curry struggling to balance his duties as a father with his duties as a kind and also as a superhero. No matter what, he is not satisfied by anything in his life, much like Brian O'Connor in the Fast and Furious movies. He is in dire need of an adventure. Thankfully, that is exactly what Aquaman Momo gets when Black Manta discovers the Black Trident, a mythical, uncursed artifact belonging to Codex, the long-dormant king of Nerkis, the Seven Kingdom of Atlantis. Turn out that Codex was King Atlantis' brother, and before the fall of Atlantis, Codex tried to take over the kingdom with the Trident, essentially turned into the mortar, fueled by Atlantis' fossil fuels and a thirst for war until Atlant froze the whole city using blood magic. In the present, Black Manta slowly becomes possessed by Codex as he sets out to free the evil king in order to gain revenge on Aquaman. To stop him, Arthur has to team up with his imprisoned brother Orm as the two bond on a journey of brotherhood. Eventually, the brothers make it to be Antarctica, where Narcos lies. They require the help of returning kings Nereon and the Brand King, Johnny Royce Davis, to help rescue Watterson, Arthur Jr., who was kidnapped by a Black Manta in order to use his blood to free Codex. What in uses what is a very cool battle on top of the massive Atlantean fortress, with all sorts of deep sea creatures and monsters involved. Aquaman and the armed breach Black Manta and succeed at taking the trident from him, but it briefly processed Orm instead. Thankfully, thanks to the power of family, Orm helps Archer kill Codex right as he wakes up from his slumber. With the family united, Archer decided not to send Orm back to the prison, but instead fake his death so he can be free at last. With the encouragement of his life brother, Archer also takes the decision to unveil Atlantis to the surface world, willing to share their technology and knowledge with the world to solve climate change. A big theme of the Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is that of environmental conversation in trying to free Codex. Black Manta steals the Atlantis equivalent of fossil fuel and burns it in order to accelerate global warming so the poles melt and Nakios thaws. The Atlantis spent that energy source for the damage. It caused to the environment. It's not subtle. This is clearly a topic dear to Jason Momoa, who has a story by credit on the film. As the triumphant end of the film is not the victory over Black Manta, but the moment when Aquaman successfully covenants the world to work together to save the environment. He has become a bridge between two worlds and is peace with his different role. As for Orm, he followed in the tradition of so many Fast and Furious villains by realizing that evil plans are nothing next to the power of family. He spends the movie slowly bonding with his brother, realizing that Arthur is a better king, and that Orm does not need a throne to be happy. He is finally free from expectation, free to go to the surface and have his first cheeseburger. While Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom leaves the door open to the new stories, things are complicated by the fact that the DCU, as we know, it is officially and finally over. Momo recently commented on the fate of the franchise to Entertainment Weekly. I don't necessarily want it to be end, but I don't think it's really like a choice. The truth of it is, if the audience loves it, then there is a possibility. But right now, I am like, it's not looking too good. We know that the new DC universe is set to start from scratch with a new canon, and only a handful of characters from the current era, making it to the new one. As of this writing, there has been no confirmation of the characters of Aquaman appearing in the new DC universe. And there is no confirmed Justice League project, but all hints suggest that we are slowly building up to a new Justice League, a much different one than before, seemingly based on the Justice League international team up, which sadly does not include Aquaman. As for Van, it is clear he cares about the world of Aquaman, and as he said in an interview with the Empire, I have not directed a third movie in series before, so I would be open to doing another Aquaman. If I got the same freedom I have had on these first two, as to the chances we'll see on Aquaman 3. One added, I have earned to never say never. Debuting in 2008 with the Iron Man, the Marvel Cinematic Universe MCU has grown into an interconnected saga and the highest grossing film franchise of all time. Unlike the more grounded aesthetic of Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy, the MCU has fully embraced the full color recency of its comic book heritage. Its stories unfold across space and time, and therefore often bypass plausibility to pursue the role of cool. This list is celebration of moment that also ludic they become awesome. Lego surfing down a flight of stairs in Shield, while no scoping in the Lord of Ring. The two tower would make the cut. However, his gravity-defying run up a collapsing base, as seen in The Hobbit, the Battle of Five Armies, would not make this list because it's a completely impossible and also dumb. One last note: this list only includes the mainline Avenger film, with no exception. Captain America, Civil War, and his Avenger film in all but name, featuring the entire teams minus Thor and Hulk. Given the film introduces Black Panther and Spider-Man, we will call it never. One of the ongoing subplots in the Avengers in the Thin Green Line Bruce Banner, where one misstep transforms the quiet scientist into an enormous green large monster. As Harry Dean Stanton helpfully pointed out after Banner awakened in a pile of wreckage, son, you have got a condition. Indeed, the film derives a lot of tension from his predicament and Loki, memorable leverages the hook against the hero. It was a perspective one, but with no regard to possible collateral damage. Tony Stark prods Bosley quite literally. What's your secret? Milosh as Bango drowns a bag of wheat. It's mostly played as a joke, but it turned out that Bruce Lee really doesn't have a secret, and it's a big one. As one of the comes bearing down on the team, he gives them the sinkini. He's always mad, despite outward appearances. Bruce Banner lives in a state of the respectful age. He is a fun except good for Rolling Stone. The Avengers directed director Josh Whedon realized his statement was semi, so Banner can hook out right well, just like a flipping a switch. He calmly walks over the Leviathan, does another shot as he becomes mean and green, and socks the flying armored whale in the jaw, bringing it to a dead stop. Bruce's staggering world drop cost, aside the while reveal and its complications remain one of the MCU's wildest moments. The entire climatic battle in Avengers and gameplays like a fan's wildest dream and include any number of moments that could earn a spot here. However, the one that takes its cake is rarely raised across the battlefield, as the heroes try to get the Infinity Gauntlet and all its game to be the time machine in the back of Leo's van. Haki starts with the Gauntlet but smartly passes it off to be Black Manta. Despite his super strength and vibranium's good, Black Manta is overpowered and passes the button to Spider-Man. Spider-Man is quickly impaled by the Hoarders, thus promoting one of the most awesomely outlandish sequences ever committed to film. Spider-Man catches a ride from which was thrown by Captain America and is caught by the paper board. In her rescue armor, and then he's thrown into the back of Pegasus, ridden by the last Agretion, they never reach the win. But that is beside the point. For sheer Zany has this can't be beaten. The entire premise of Captain America Civil War is built toward provoking the super friend, toward inner conflict and dissolution. Sort of like his breakup of the battle bit, but with no more explosion and one-liner. Helmut Zemo masterfully manipulated the hero. But it all boils down to this: who is Tav Regular? Chris Evans' bestie. As in Highlander, there can be only one. In one corner, Tony Stark, the good time guy with all the toys. His opponent, Bucky Barnes, as Emo former assassin looking to turn over a new leaf. The fight is cool and the film adds it, providing proper motivation to everyone involved. But it earns a spot here because it's still stringy credibility. Are these people so broken they can only subtle differences with their fist? While hammering Achon bars into debates in Avenger, Age of Ultron, encounters Wanda Maximoff, she tries to bewitch him, which is usually folly. He presently does a other Avenger. He is impervious to such sorcery. So every next month find Thor wandering in a creepy as Guardians revive, sort of Viking, eyes wide shut, mirrors are shining. A blind hammer all. Then tries to strange lightning shoot out of the Thor's specs, dusting the dancing the unlocker. If you have not figured it out yet, this is one of the more bizarre items on this list. Amid all the chores, Thor glimpses shiny gems floating in space. Trouble the latter look at a mystical pool. If the water spirit accept me, I can return to my dream and find what I missed. You read that right, water spirit. Thor wanders around the pool, yelling as lightning shoot out of his chest again. From that, somehow he comes to be understand the nature of the Infinity Stone and importance of having vision on the team. It's a super clumsy narrative device, and not one of the MCU's finest moments, but it's also hilariously memorable. After Crash landing on Titans in Avengers Infinity War, the Avengers join forces with the Black Guardians of the Galaxy to take on the throne. Doctor Strange decided to use the damn stone to scout into the future and maybe avoid dying. After viewing a staggering 14-minute outcome, the news is grim. The Avengers only win once. It's grim prognosis, especially once the Avenger remain undefeated to the 40 point. The stakes are high when Thanos finally arrive, but Avengers Guardians team up only manage to extract a single drop of blood from the Mad Titan. Yak is considering everything goes as Doctor Strange and foreseen. There is something else that is quite hard to be stomached. No, not Patrick Will. Deciding to beat on a desk, John will the gauntlet was in their grasp. Consider this: the fate of the galaxy, an untold billion of lives hanging on a rat rescuing Scotland from the quantum realm, even when dealing with the fantastic that is one Chin Morgan. In a world of gods and monsters, super soldier and science experiment, it's just out there's a bow and arrow. His whole deal is pretty ludicrous. He is not hiding any shocking and fantastic ability. He is just a super accurate with a stone edge weapon. Aesthetic of the bows aside, a gun is aiming immensely more useful. When it comes down to it, Haki is not all that different from Black Widow in terms of the capabilities of skill. And I think he can do. She can do better. Except the whole bow thing. Avengers Age of Ultron shines a light of the future ridiculousness of the situation, while fighting Ultron's minions on a floating island. Haki himself provides a bit of fourth-wall breaking commentary. Okay, Alok, the city is flying. We are fighting an army of robots, and I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense. It's a cheeky way of winking at the audiences and telling us Marvel is on the joke, and is doing so seeks to exonerate Hawking for serious security. Even if far out think like time travel, multiverses and quantum realm, the guy with the bow remain the most ridiculous thing in the MCU. A big part of the MCU's charm is a sheer spectacle. These are impossibly powerful characters doing incredible things. Give or take Hulk, Captain America arm wrestling a helicopter back to the helipad, Spider-Man stringing to the hold a very together, and the Guardians of the Galaxy while standing the Power Stone. Yet among all the displays of power we have witnessed across the MCU, one remains undefeated. After escaping from the trap laid for him on Titan is Avenger. Infinity War. Thanos wastes no time subduing the heroes. That tosses Doctor Strange like a sack of the potato and lays out the Guardian with a blast from the Power Stone. He saved the most brutal counter-attack for last, reaching into the sky with his gauntlet. Thanos shatters the moon and uses the Fury pieces to rain destruction on Iron Man. It's a devastating reversal from what seemed like an Avenger victory and lays bare just how outmatched the heroes truly are. The two smartest members of the Avengers concord a solution to their uncontrollable, raking Grey Monster's problem. It's not a sleeping gas, a mixtape of Black Widow, Lullaby, or pictures of Purple and Kitten, any of which would probably do trick. The solution is a really big Iron Man sword with which to punch the Hulk in the face. But like most of us, he Hulk does not like getting liked. It only makes him angrier. The angrier he gets, the stronger he becomes, which beget more punching in the face, and so on. Does that make any sense to you? The Hulk vs. suit is a logical fallacy arrived at a large part because Tony Stark is an engineer, and therefore he tried to engineer a solution the only way he knows how, by building something. The resulting mayhem is one of the best scenes in Avenger Age of Ultron, has situation tips from bad to much worse with the collateral damage gore as a solution to a specific problem. The Hulkbuster's hit sword was super certificated, but it made for awesome scene. He is just so darn likable. His addition to the MCU has provided some much needed levity amid all the world ending threat. Likewise, Raj's appearance in Captain America Civil War provided a dose of laughter in an otherwise somber story, and told the story how the movies were seen, unable to compromise on the Sokovia Accord. Captain America and Iron Man are eventually goaded into the confrontation by Zemo. They initially come to blows at a German airport in a sprawling fight as Avenger turn on Avenger. It's a jaw-dropping bite of hard Nirvana as 12 superhero partake in a Royal Rumble's IQ Battle Royal. Without their fleshy power on display, Ant-Man takes him to a surprising new level by suddenly growing 60 feet tall, dwarfing the battlefield. Ant-Man toys with Team Iron Man. He throws them around while laughing manically and joyful destroying vehicle. In all honesty, it's a miracle he did not kill anybody. Most of the characters were pulling punches, but Ant-Man was out here trying to crush people. Underneath his size 100 boost. One of the reasons Captain America Winter Soldier is so beloved, it is finally delivered a Captain America that was truly a super soldier, with emphasis on super. Up to that point, Cap just seemed like a guy who was moderately stronger than a more normal but was honestly kind of meh. Winter Soldier changed that by showing just how to strong staff Roger truly is. 5 minutes into the movie, he kicks a tourist off a boat with such velocity that you have to assume the guy broke his neck when he hit the water. Avengers Age Ultron carries that whole crap Avenger energy forward, which he'll head to an exciting encounter that is nonetheless a bit silky. We're trying to prevent Ultron from absconding with a sleek new vibranium body. Cap finds himself isolated against the rampant AI bot. After losing his shield in the encounter, Cap fired the only way he knows how punching and kicking. Considering Ultron's report, it does not seem like a good strategy. Oh, and the point, Cap tried to joke Ultron. I guess I'll forget that robot did not bread. It's still a great fight. When Captain America once again finds himself in an elevator full of Hydra agents, we think we know what's going to happen. And given this incredible elevator scene in Captain America, Winter Soldier, we are excited to see it. However, the film is just wetting the artists, setting up over expectation and then cleverly subverting them. When Cap leans into what Jasper Stavel and says simply, Hail Hydra, we are as shocked as Stavel look in one of the wildest and most unexpected turn in the entire MCU. Cap simply walk out, taking the scepter without throwing a punch. After getting royal stormed by Thanos in the opening of Avengers Infinity War, Thor undertakes a heroic journey to find a weapon that can level the playing field. His quest eventually takes him to the same that constructed Mjolnir. Unfortunately, Thanos got it first, killing everyone and maiming the lone surviving Zod. And it add on the top of that, the Forget is out of order. That is the Forga. Thor takes on the full force of Star, and he somehow is not killed outright. Anyone else would be atomized, but Thor comes through it with nothing worse than bad sunburn. He is crumbled eventually, falling into a coma. Also, it could be just bad gas of the sun rock. It seems like maybe Thor will die after all. There is no allow and near as the disgust Thor is a million miles away. Groot is sentient, adolescent, man cuts off his arm and uses it for the handle of the magic axe crafted by the enormous dwarf. The axe brings Thor back from the brink. This whole plot line is just insanity. Loki spends most of the entire time of the Avengers fully doing out the punishment to this hero, often by pitting them against one another. He's always one step ahead, even when the Avengers have Loki under house arrest. As Naki Fury point out, why do feel like he's the only person on his boat and then want to be here? Bruce Banner can smell the crazy on Loki but find himself on the receiving end of the joke when a dangerously out of control hook enables Loki to escape. Therefore, when a certain control hook later encounter Loki during the battle for New York, it's personal. Despite Loki's arrogant self-assurance in his goodhood, the hook was makes quiet work for the Asgardian prince, vaguely beating him against the ground like his dirty float mirror. It's absurdly comedic. Chip joining to provide outright slapstick, the sort of thing you would expect in a while he cartoon. The climax of Avengers Endgame finds Captain America holding a broken shield and standing alone against Thanos and his army. There is no quieting gap, but despite his I can't do sell this all day, it's clear the end is high. He will go down fighting, but he's going to go down. And then Sam Wilson's and Johnny Mackie appear to speak from the grave on your left. In movie history, few moments can stand shoulder to shoulder with the spotless scene of the endgame for sheer awestruck spectacle. Certainly no matter movie can match Endgame of 21 film build-up, nor the characteristics of seeing almost every hero we have ever made return to stand behind the wealthy Captain America, especially since many of these heroes had recently been dusted in Avengers Infinity War. The Avengers have been called to battle for decades in the comic book through the iconic catchphrases Avengers Assemble, but Marvel Studios had us for what held it for the film. After 20 years, 16 movies, and some disappointing review and box office performance, of late, the DC Extended Universe has officially come to an end with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Jason Momoa stars as Aquaman for the seventh time in his career. After two solo movies, a Justice League team up, and a handful of cameos, his first stand-alone movie, 2018's Aquaman, defied expectations and ended up making $1.15 billion at a worldwide box office, the highest grossing DC movie ever. But this is likely Momo's final time suiting up as Aquaman. New DC Studios, CEOs James Gunn and Peter Safran are rebooting the DC Universe with 2025 Superman. Legacy with the plan to recast most of the major role. There is not an Aquaman movie on the DC slate they have revealed. So far, meaning Lost Kingdom is Momo's favorite for now. If Gunn and Saffron end up keeping any element of the current DCU, Lost Kingdom may have planted some new seed for the future. The first major development in the sequel is that Aquaman and his Atlantis queen Mira Amber have a baby who exhibits some of his parents' underwater power. The hero's dad duties are interrupted when a possessed Black Manta resurfaces to cause some global warming disasters with the ancient Black Trident artifact. Aquaman teams up with his reformed brother Orm to stop Black Manta from resurrecting the zombie army of Necros, an ancient underwater kingdom lost to them. In the end, the heroes are successful. Black Manta dies and Aquaman reveals the existence of Atlantis to the United Nations, hoping the underwater civilization can be recognized as a sovereign religion. Most superhero movies nowadays use a post-credit scene to tease what's coming next for the franchise. But what happens when the cinematic universe is coming to an end? In the case of Aquaman 2 and DCU, the post-credit scene is the call back to an earlier joke. During their travels together, Aquaman tells Orm all about the wonders of the surface world, like beer, greasy, burgers, and as a joke, cockroaches. He makes Orm sample a cockroach, and to his surprise, Orm likes it. In the mid scene, Orm sits at a restaurant, orders a burger, and adds a crunched cockroach. And with final test scene, the DCU comes to an end. But this is really Momo's last role as a DC character. He reportedly held a meeting with Gunn to discuss the future in the new DC universe. I will be always Aquaman, and not anyone coming in here and taking shit. There might be some other character too. There have since been ran rumors that Momo should play Lobo, a buff alien bounty hunter who happened to share some reasonables with Momo, but nothing has been confirmed. And this chapter of the DCU closes. He's been open to surprise his original role that made him a household name. The truth of it is, if the Odyssey is love, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, then there is a possibility. But right now, I am like, it's not looking too good. I love this character, and I would want to play it for a long time. Momo said, I kind of see where I would want it to go. And even in the next 10 days, years or so, there's a lot of cool things they can do. And I do enjoy the role and the world. So I just come down to if people love it. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has finally arrived, and with it, the book is now officially closed on the DCU. The DC Extended Universe, our film began with The Man of Steel in 2013 and has since consisted of 15 feature films, including Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom, 16 if you include Zack Snyder, Justice League as its own film. Since the decision to start a new universe of movies came so abruptly, this new Aquaman film does not even attempt to bring any sort of closure to its surrounding universe, which actually might be for the best. Instead, we get a definitive and clear ending to the character and stories within the realm of Aquaman. The final act finds us that the mythical lost kingdom of Necros. It has been hidden and trapped within a magical spell placed by King Atlantis centuries ago. Arthur Curry, along with the Orm and King Neros, arrive to stop Black Manta, who is trying to break the spell that holds the evil king Cortex at bay. Only someone within King Atlantis' bloodline can break the spell. Knowing this is Black Manta, kidnap Arthur Curry's son Junior and bring to Macros. A massive battle ensues as its evil forces trapped, but the Necros began awakening amidst the chaos. Arthur and Orm attempt to defeat Black Manta and save Junior. Orm briefly grabs hold of the Black Trident, the evil weapon of King Cortex that was poisoning and possessing Black Manta mind. While holding the Trident, King Cortex then transfers his spirit to the Orm and promises to return to him the power of Ocean Master if they join forces. Arthur reminds Orm of the Flaming Word of their mother Queen Atlana and breaks the hold of Cortex. Following the defeat of Cortex and destruction of Nercus, our heroes find themselves gathered on an iceberg. Orm, having just been broken out of his imprisonment, had previously agreed to return to his cell after he had saved the world with the approval of both Kingfish and King Neros. Arthur suggests that Orm lay low from a while and he will report him as led to Atlantis. Much of the drama in the beginning of the film revolved around Atlantis' reluctance to reveal themselves to the surface after the near decimation of the planet they finally decided they need to work together with the surface in order to protect and help restore it. The film closes with a global press conference at the UN and Arthur Curry official announcing Atlantis and that it is the final word spoken in the DCU. Arthur, Mira, and their baby Arthur Jr. live happily ever after. Atlantis agrees to come out of hiding and use their technology and resources used to enter the globe. Overall, a very neat and tidy conclusion to the Aquaman saga while also being a rather unceremonious ending to the DC Extended Universe films. Spoiler alert, we are breaking down key plot points and the ending of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom in theaters now. So beware if you have not yet seen. If you watched the new Aquaman sequel and thought wait there was it, yep, that it was. A decade of DC movie ended with Patrick Wilson eating a Josh burger. With a rebooted cinematic universe on the horizon for 2025, Jason Momoa, seafaring Tetris superhero, has his final swim in Lost Kingdom, which finishes off the current DC era that had Marvel-sized ambitious but never found consistent critical and audiences love. So yeah, the movie was a lame duck of sort, with no cool cameos or teases, but Aquaman still needed to save the world from a bad guy. With a light of magical dude, that's commitment to the job people. Winning full supervillain Black Manta gets his hand on the mythical Black Trident and becomes possessed by the spirit of Cortex, the evil ruler of the mythical Lost Kingdom of Necros. He and his aqua zombies are frozen and dead. In charge Kitka and Mancha still, Aquaman's baby to use a kid royal Atlantis blood to break the spell. Free Cortex and his undead board and unleash hell in earth. With the help of Aquaman's our brother Orm Wilson, or Trumbull hero defeat the resurrected Cortex and Manta, fall to his death as Negro scramble. In the aftermath, Aquaman decided to go public with the existence of Atlantis, much like McIntyre's revealed at the end of the Marvel's Black Panther, and the hero holds a new conference on Ellis Island, promising to work with the global nation to help solve the climate crisis. I am the king of Atlantis. I am Aquaman. He exclaimed with a mic drop, a more Mako version of Robert Downey Jr.'s I am Iron Man moment in Iron Man. After years and ex-husband Johnny Depp's recent legal mess, she was almost fired from her role as Aquaman wife. Mira and had seen cut from the sequel, but she actually has a decent amount of screen time, as much as Nicole Kidman as Aquaman's mom Atlanta. That's sad. Mira does not have a turn to do early on. She hangs around her husband, folds laundry, and ends up in the infirmary when Manta burns her badly. But near the final, Mira gets more involved in the action and saves her baby, as Aquaman's and Codex yourself. Yep, and whilst it's amazing, it's certainly one of the more inconsequential ones in recent memory, as it pays off a joke from earlier in the movie, where Aquaman tricks Orm into eating the cockroach and he ends up digging it. Cut to the end credit scene, Orm is laying low. Since much of Atlantis is still right at him for his bad guy. Period C 2018's Aquaman, and he partakes in burger at an outdoor restaurant. Orm sees a random cockroach walking on his table and puts it on the burger, taking a bite and smiling due to its insect whiteness. For the most part, probably not. New DC Hanko's James Gunn and Peter Safran are not killing over many of the actor. Gunn has said Solo will return, but it's going to be new Batman as well as the hero. 2025 Superman Legacy will start filling out its lineup, starting with David Cransworth as a later Superman, as Lois Lane and Inako Sword as Lex Luthor. Momo has the best chance of returning, likely not as Aquaman. Fans have long dreamed of him playing DC Cosmic Tough Guy Robo, Momo's favorite comic book characters and one akin in wieldy violent spirit to Marvel's Deadpool. And the actor himself would be incredible Don for playing him. If they ever call me to ask me to play or ask him to audition, I am there. Momo said in recent Fantaco interview. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is here at last, ringing out the final echoes of the Zack Snyder era of DC comic, BFCs and seemingly bringing the 10 years DC Extended Universe project to a rather underwhelming close. In a sequel to his 2018 surprise hit, director James Van reunited with much of the cast from the original, including Jason Momoa, Patrick Wilson, Nicole Kidman, and Yahya Abdul-Mateen too, for an underwater sci-fi epic of royal intrigue, terrifying monsters, and plenty of goodness. In the wake of Arthur Carey's latest quest, he and his family, that can't be undone well, except by a few pen stroke from James Gunn. Of course, and yet of the cinematic style side seems destined to come in and wash away everything the past to Aquaman. Films have accomplished. Momo and Van have not closed the door on a third outing just yet. If they do get a chance to dive back into these admittedly murky water, they certainly have quite a cliffhanger to revisit. Following his defeat at the hands of Aquaman in the first film, David Kenny is hellbent on repairing his Black Manta armor so that he may exact his revenge on the King of Atlantis. Fortunately, and with the help of marine biologist Dr. Stephen Shine, he uncovered the lost kingdom of Necros, frozen for eternity, in the Arctic by King Athlon, imbued with the superhuman physical abilities by a cursed Black Trident belonging to Nerkos, White Ruler, and Atlan's brother, King Codex. Can sets out to free the forces of the Lost Kingdom and earn the power to kill Arthur, Curie, and his entire family. He began his quest by stealing and then burning an ancient, environmentally destructive power source known as the emitting upper barreled amount of greenhouse gases that expedite climate change and melting the lost kingdom of Necros out of his anarchic prison. Arthur, who has sired a son with his wife, Queen Mira, since Aquaman, becomes aware of Kane's plan after he attacks Atlantis and breaks his great former Queen Ocean Master Orm out of a desert prison to help track down and stop Black Manta. By the time they are able to break into his facility and learn of his full plan, it's too late. Manta has destroyed Arthur's home. To reverse King Atlantis' spell and free Cortex, can need to be blood of Atlantis' family before he can sacrifice Arthur's son. However, Arthur and Orm reunited with Mera, Atlana and the Queen Moder, King Naros, the Brink King, and the forces of their respective realm lay siege to the newly melted Necros. During their final battle, the spirit of Cortex uses Orm's hatred and resentment of Arthur to corrupt him, and now imbued with the Trident power. Orm overpowers Arthur and bloodies him on the sacrificial altar. As the ice imprisoning Cortex melt, Arthur and Orm wrestle for the Trident, its influences exploiting their negative feeling for one another. Arthur overcomes that this by focusing on the memory of when he first met. Later, Orm is set free by those present, whose promise to presume him dead so that he may live a quiet life among humans. In the weeks that follow, Arthur reveals Atlantis' existence to the surface world, secures representation within the United Nations, and as a world to unite reverse the effect of the ongoing climate crisis. In the first Aquaman was the CEO's Black Panther. Then Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is without question its door, the Dark World, jokingly referred to Orm as Loki. At one point, during the film, like the infamously derided Marvel sequel, The Lost Kingdom uses a larger conflict between two realms, one enjoying comfortable hegemony, the other long since trapped and hidden away, to mirror and ultimately reconcile a similar interpersonal conflict at the heart of the story. The Lost Kingdom is a bit more transparent in this regard, with Orm and Arthur's fractured brotherhood being nearly identical to Codex and Atlas. The film script arguably failed to dive deep enough into the similarities and differences in these relationships to take full advantage of them. It could be inferred that Arthur's achieved victory in the end because he, unlike Atlan, is able to find unity with his brother. Orm hinted as much during his encouraging farewell to Arthur, in which he admitted that Arthur's willingness to seek help from and cooperate with others make him better fit for the throne. Had Arthur given it to Cortex influences and chosen to fight Orm for the Trident, he would have either been empowered by Cortex and Orm's combined, strengthened or corrupted by the Trident himself. Only by winning Orm's brotherhood is he able to achieve lasting peace by eradicating Cortex and the Nightcrawler's hordes. The majority of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom can be read as a blatant allegorical plea for global unity in the face of existential climate crisis. James Wan uses the titular Lost Kingdom of Necros as a well-meaning, if somewhat clunky, metaphor for the impending threat, with characters regularly and explicitly name-dropping busy concepts like climate change, greenhouse gases, and melting ice cap. But Cortex and the monster of Necros can only be stopped by one thing: complete political cooperation, just as no one nation can stop the climate crisis. Arthur is unable to defeat Cortex and Black Manta without help from his allies and enemies alike. A crucial part of his journey is rebuilding his relationship with Orm, a man whose greatest weakness as a leader was his desire to destroy his enemies rather than work with them. Meanwhile, the governing council of Atlantis, who gave Orm war power and the title of Ocean Master in the last film, have taken a staunchly isolation stance in the face of environmental inhalation. Arthur must ultimately work around him to reveal Atlantis' existence and help lead the fight against climate change. Like many humans who have spent a better part of their lives watching politicians ignore the ever growing climate disaster in favor of personal economic and political interest. When seems anxious about what the future holds, so we continued on our current path. At the same time, his films paint a hopeful, aspirational picture of what the world could accomplish if we work together in the face of this threat. Aside from Jason's Momo cameo in the past credit scene of The Flash earlier this year, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has basically no connection to the wider DC extended universe. Its final moment is a new status quo from the world at large. There is absolutely nothing to imply that this world is the same one inhabited by any iteration of the Justice League, not even Zack Snyder, except for the tenuous connection of Momo having played the same characters in a few films outside of this one. As a duology, James Van's Aquaman films essentially stand on their own. The Last Kingdom is widely being heralded as the end of the DCU, as is the final DC project starring a member of the Snyder Justice League cast and last before James Gunn launches his DC universe with Superman. Legacy Cursori, read of the room at DC and Warner Bros. Pretty clearly implied that Gunn and the studio want a fresh start, bearing any runaway box office. They think they can still profit from it, and despite being a sequel to the highest grossing DCU outing, The Lost Kingdom is currently tracking to bomb even harder at the box office than the Marvel did. In short, there is essentially nothing in or outside of the film that leads one to believe a meaningful future awaits this series. Even so, Momo and Van are keeping their mind open about the possibility of a third installment. In the weeks leading up to the release of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the elephant fish in the aquarium has been whether or not the film would end James Wan and Jason's Momo term under the sea. While nobody expected either of them to come out and say it was the definitive, and which would be like announcing on TV series is cancelled week before a new season airs. It's still a bit surprising to hear them talk about the potential for more stories in this continuity. For Van's part, he seemed to be treating his film as their own, isolated universe that could theoretically be integrated into James Gunn's future discipline. As he explained to Above the Line, he sees his two films as taking place in this fantasy world that is not part of the greater DC universe, and does not beholden to any continuity past, present, or future. When even appear cautiously optimistic about the third installment, outlining to the Entertainment Weekly his general hope of Arthur's character arc if and when a third film is made. Momo seems significantly more dubious about his future, as Aquaman possibly due to the rumors that he may be recast as Lobo in Gunn's new universe. He told Entertainment Tonight that the film's success could earn him another outing, and that he is in no hurry to leave the characters behind. The likelihood of this version of Aquaman somehow persisting in the new universe is not looking too good. An expert pilot and equal college best friend of the smartest man on earth, Grim agreed to fly his pal Reed Richards' experimental rocket ship into outer space so it could be tested. In the end, the ship ultimately performed pretty well until its radiation shielding failed to protect his crew from the cosmic ray that transformed Ben into the ever-loving blue-eyed thing. The thing's trend has steadily increased ever since further mutation and a constant strength training. It's not known if there is a limit, so how strong they could become in the future. but he has not found it yet. During the Avengers vs. X-Men comic book events in 2012, Thing actually managed to defeat Namor in a first fight while underwater. In Uncanny X-Men 12, Namor may be the strongest thing from the seas, but the shore is not the strongest thing in time any longer. X-Men does not always receive her flower. Even she is now one of the longest serving members of Professor X mutant team. Debuting in 1981's Avengers Annual, Tan Rokyo possesses an interesting superpower. If she touches anyone with her bare skin, she can absorb their life force and power temporarily. However, if she latches on far too long, it may become more permanent. This was the case when Rogue encountered Mrs. Marvel's Aka Carol Jones, while part of the Disorderly Brotherhood, a evil mutant, battles against Ms. Marvel and observes all of her power and memories, making her exceptionally strong, near invisible, and giving her the ability to fly. If that is not enough, she also comes into contact with Wonder Man, another Marvel's powerhouse, and receives his super strength too. In later year, Danvers beat a living daylight out of the Rogue in 2006. Mrs. Marvel Chan Rogue is not prepared, as he only tried to help Dan against Wirebird when she gets suckered. That being said, Marvel's official website lists Rogue as being stronger than Danver, so consider the knockout moment Haruki tree. Unfortunately for the Thing and Rogue, they still have a long way to go if they ever hope to catch up the next hero. Excuse us. On our list. In 1979, Savage the She-Hulk won when a gunshot wound forced Bruce to give her a blood transfusion in order to save her life. The producers succeeded. Jennifer found that she could transform into the She-Hulk, not as strong as her cousin. She was able to retain both her intelligence and her sense of self while in Hulk mode. Her strength has fluctuated over the years, but like many others on this list, she is steadily grown stronger since her creation. In 2004, She-Hulk, she effortlessly lifted the thing's weight, lifting machine at his maximum setting with one hand. In the same issue, she had to throw on arm wrestling match with Hercules in order to spare his feeling. More recent stories like Immortal Hulk, however, have shown She-Hulk begin to close in her cousin's level of strength. When an infant Kal-El was rocketed to the earth to save him from Gravejohn's destruction, his 15 years old cousin. Eventually, Kara joined her older cousin in his fight for truth and justice as Supergirl, and she is still a teenager. She is one of the single most powerful people on the planet. Various stories throughout the year, like the season 2 Supergirl final. Nevertheless, she persisted on the CW have the Supergirl is might be or will become stronger than Superman. But in the comic where she is still currently teenager, that is not in the case. Many people don't realize it's John Jones, the monster from Mars, in one of DC Comics' most powerful superhero. In addition to possessing, but in the addition of a gamma bomb, Dr. Blues Banner found himself transformed into a monster known only as Hook. The detail of the pair's symbiotic relationship might change, but at the end of the day, superhero comic books say one unbreakable rule. Superman might be strong enough to move planet or bench press the full weight of the Earth's core, but even his inhuman strength has its limit. Hook's strength does not. It's a famous superhero equation. The madder Hook gets, the stronger he gets, and there is a no end to it. When Bruce Banner transforms, the Hook wants to fight, and the more he fights, the angrier and stronger he gets. It's a exclusive loop, a self-fulfilling prophecy. that ensures that his fears are certain. Hook will always come out on top, with one notable exception. After a particle experiment turns on into Dr. Manhattan, he receives special abilities that transforms him into an unstoppable celestial entity. Introduced in 1986, Watchman, Manhattan holds the laundry list, a power including super strength, telepathy, teleportation, flight, and immortality. What's particularly scary about his ability is how he can alter molecules and disintegrate someone instantly, without too much force or consequences. If Mansion woke up tomorrow and decided to what needed a rest, he would not need an infinity gauntlet to wipe away 50% of humanity, and he could do it before the first cup of coffee kicks in. And the skill that he possesses is the ability to look into the past, present, and future, and even change the fabric of reality, something he had during the Flashpoint event, which resulted in the creation of the new 52 branch of the DC universe. Truthfully, only the surface level of his power has been scratched in the comic. It's a good thing that he is tired of humanity and prefer to chill out with only his out of company. Otherwise, he could be greatest threat and art has ever seen. These days are so many great animated shows and movies aimed at a age that plenty of folk still turn to cartoon as a respite from the real world. Animation is a modern art form. It can be a commenting on society and a way of understanding the world, giving viewers an opportunity to see themselves in those colorful characters. But unlike live action shows, cartoon characters often live in world of boundaries possibility, creating a fertile space of exploring complex ideas, dabbling in the absurd, and parodying subjects that might be too sensitive to cover elsewhere. No matter how the viewers are or what generation they were born in, most have fond memories of cartoon that made an impression on them during their formative year, from early cartoon like to iconic Disney villain like Ursula. Everyone has their favorite. After considering everything from cult following to culture impact, we're ranking the 60 best cartoon characters of all time for generation of cartoon lover. The phrase Pink Panther instantly comes to mind the iconic handy theme music with its simple animation style and trippy stories. The series is a visual odyssey, one of the simple cartoon characters on the list. Pink Panther is a pink cat with yellow eyes, a British accent, and occasionally a teeny robe. The series would be rebooted in the 1990s during Mad Fever and featuring a more intense version of the McKinney theme. The Pink Panther is often curious, but executes a laid-back attitude, making him the ultimate cool cat. This combination of traits lands him in a some pretty doggy scenario, from haunted house to a Wonderland SQ. One of the things that make the Pink Panther great is his reliance on pantomime, which gives him plenty of opportunity for hilarious cartoon physics and surrealism. Originally airing the 1960s, Speed Racer is an anime adapted from Testo Japanese manga by. It premiered on ABC in the United States and would become one of the earliest anime to become popular stateside. While the doubling is a bite of mess with its hilariously fast dialogue, the series is a pretty straightforward adventure. The protagonist of the series, the main protagonist of the Pirates theme, shonen manga One Piece, as accompanying anime series, whose greatest dream is a life is to become the next pirate king. It's a dream that can only be realized if you manage to acquire the story's MacGuffin, a fable treasure of immeasurable value acquired by the late great pirate king. Goldberg Rogers are so small and skinny. Luffy has a big heart and stretched Armstrong, like powers that acquired after getting a devil fruit as a kid. It's with those power and his band of straw had pirate that Luffy sets out on a going merry for seemingly endless training of adventure that involves everything except acquiring the actual One Pieces. Luffy is all about good food and friendship, making him an honest and extremely likable protagonist over the course of the One Piece timeline. He became a respected pirate captain. What's more, One Piece has been praised for its representation. Luffy and his crew resonate particularly well with female and audiences compared to other shows of this type. He may not be star of the Phineas and Ferb, but he is a fan of favorite nonetheless. Archie played up with a brown Fedro. Play appeared to be just a regular, silly pet of Phineas and Ferb, but he is also a brilliant multitasker with a double life as a secret agent for the OWCA, and he is forever sneaking off to the countless secret tunnel that lead to the top secret layer under his home. He may play dumb to his family, but Parody Playtop is incredibly smart, and like any good spy, he has got access to a plethora of made gadgets. But despite all of his skill and secret, at the end of the day, he's a totally chilling with his family, and it's hard not to love him for that. The start of the comedy sci-fi show, Dexter's Laboratory. Dexter leads a double life right under his parent, noses with a secret science lab in his basement, with big round glasses, purple gloves, a white lab coat, and ginger girl. Dexter spent his time getting up to some serious a super genius he speaks with an inexplicable Russian accent. Despite living in a suburban America, the series is credited with inventing the complex and cinematic modern animation style that would later inspire series like The Powerpuff Girl and Fairy Odd Parents, according to Sci-Fi Wire. The ultimate embodiment of kawaii or Japanese world, usually translated as cute. Hello Kitty is a simple, sweet character that Gen X girl fell in love with back in the late 1970s. The popularity of this hyper-marketable cat-like character would only grow through the year, with many of her haired fans having never even seen a Hello Kitty cartoon. But his makes perfect sense for a character that began life as something mean to accentuate a winning and pursue. Although Hello Kitty's design is somewhat basic, there is something oddly charming in the simple shape of her face. Since her original creation, the iconic Oshi Kitty has become the de facto of cutest Japanese inspired fashion aesthetic and grace countless t-shirts for girls, teens, and even grown adults. What many of these people may not realize is that there's been over a dozen animated Hello Kitty series dating back to 1987 when the Japanese American to production Hello Kitty's Fury, the Tail Theater hit TV screen. With her signature pink bunny ear, Louise Belker is the most beloved member of the Belker's family on Bob Burger, the 9 years old sibling to Jen and Jenna. Is smart, sneaky, and always ready with snappy commentary. She's also kind of intense and just a little bit terrifying, prepared to throw down at a moment notice. As to why she always wear bunny ear, numerous fan theories abound. In an interview with the AV Club, animator Lorne of his ear, you get a little cognitive dissonance which experiences both as a little girl and Bugs Bunny at the same time. And of course, as anyone who has been seen with the watching czar can at least little kid just look cute with animal's ear on their head. And with that, the DCU is officially dead. It's been a decade, but with the credits rolling on Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, we can finally close a book on what has been one hell of a roller coaster ride. And in the end, what is worth it? Nope. As the one person on this side who has been chronicling almost everything DCU related since I first joined, I think I can safely say that the only people who are going to miss this field experiment of a cinematic universe are going to be Zack Snyder fans. But even then they are too busy hyping an equally and cinematic universe that I cannot wait to talk about in any near future. Still, in a year that gave us 4 DCU films, does it really mean anything when I say that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is the best of them all? At the very least, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom knows what it is and does its job competently. For whatever that's worth at this point, says somebody after this first movie. Arthur Curry has settled into a comfortable life as the King of Atlantis. By day, he is trying to handle the problem that the kingdom faces, and by night, he goes back to the surface to take care of his newborn son. However, Black Manta has returned to seek vengeance against Aquaman and has the power of Black Trident on his side. What is the Black Trident? Well, it's a relic of Eponymous Lost Kingdom that is slowly corrupting him and encouraging him to let out a thousands of fear. All evil to lead on killing Aquaman and destroying the world. So clearly, he needs to be stopped. But Aquaman can't do it alone. So he will be need to build his tyrannical brother out of jail to aid in stopping Manta and saving both the land and sea. Not much has seen the presentation wise from the original film back when it was released in 2018. If you like the pure spectacle of the first movie, while there is immediately less of that here, as the film ought to focus more on characters' development. What's here is still effective and gets the job done. Whenever you will feel like the energy is starting to die down, an eviction scene is ready to pop in and you back into the tension. There is not a whole lot to distinguish this scene, and I often recycle a lot of them same element. Black Manta uses his laser, a giant robot attack. Aquaman bum rushes someone, but recycled action beats are hardly the worst sign as action movie can commit. No, what is a big sign is that you can tell that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom have been edited to hell and back, outside of some very wide solo implemented in a handful of scenes. The movie's overall structure just feels. The big lore jump occur right at the beginning of the climax scene to establish the stack. Not even 2 minutes after Aquaman explained why Om needed to be a snuck out of jail, he is suddenly free. Voiceovers do a lot of heavy lifting just to keep the plot moving, and you can pretty easily tell that. This movie had free reshot over the course of 2 years. These are not the kind of reshot where they are trying to fix problem within the film, rather than trying to make the films line up with whatever the hell was happening elsewhere in the DCU. I think James Gunn and James Wan eventually threw their hands up in the air, sat secured, and just put the film in theater to be done with the whole project. That's a pretty negative reading of the situation, to be sure. But can you blame them? It's almost impossible to talk about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom without first acknowledging the mess that DC put themselves in. Now, a movie that is not all that bad has been put out to be dire when it really does not deserve that. You can tell that there is at least some effort being put into it by the cast member. Yahya Abdul Mateen is an excellent villain, going all in all just being a despicable person until the very end. Jason's Momo's dude bros may get odd to some pretty quickly, but when paired with the Patrick Wilson stick in a mud demonier, it strangely works. Patrick Wilson is probably the weakest of the three lead, as he does seem pretty miscast in a superhero blockbuster. But at least now to be take what's happening here too seriously and is not afraid to make a fool of himself. Admittedly, their films really does richard up the stupidity when compared to the first film in a way that screams. The villain manipulating Black Manta is a cross between a power bronger villain and a Captain Planet, whose goal is basically to destroy the world via pollution. The film is beating the drum about protecting the earth and stopping global warming. But any message the film may have is kind of ruined by how quickly it undermined the seriousness of the situation. For instance, Aquaman makes one arm eat cockroaches while talking about the joys of eating pizza right after arriving at the villain's base, which is since volcano shooting green toxic film into the sky. Is that feels almost nostalgic. The stupidity does reach a boiling point by the climax, where just throws everything and kitchen sink but none of this tech. With a totally different villain that Aquaman has to stop with plenty of medical CG to boot. You can feel the film trying to wrap itself up as quickly as possible and jams and logic in its pursuit of getting things the hell ever. It's not as bad or as blatant as other DCU effort, but by the end, you just feel worn out and want the film to wrap up. I think this is because Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom does not really introduce anything new to the franchise and is just reusing the same character in different ways. There are hardly any new addition here other than changing the character dynamic, and it does resolve itself. In a way, I'm glad that there wasn't a post-credit scene that tried to tease this what's to come since we all know there is nothing after this. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom does set up areas that a sequel could explore, but it feels like a pretty indefinitive ending for its character, and I'm okay with that. If there is a demand for a third Aquaman movie, I would be okay with it since this franchise's batting average has been fun at best. And yes, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is over to slightly worse than its predecessor, but that's mostly because it does not really attempt to do anything new with the premises than putting the same cast in slightly different situation. They still managed to have some fun here, and I did find myself enjoying the film at them. But I can't say I am gonna look back with wistful nostalgia at the Aquaman movies. They were good at just being basic action movie, and that's about it. They were entertaining and enforcing superhero stuff, which should be viewed somewhat favorable after the past years DC has had. I did not actively hate my time with this movie. I wasn't bored to tears by it, and I wasn't confused at what the purpose of it was. Everything about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom was evidently clear. It wanted to be a simple action movie, just like the first movie, but was ever too slightly weaker because it was not as fresh. I respect that it reached the goal and did not have its eyes set on the moon. Maybe that's lesson that DC can learn moving forward. Sometimes it's okay to be competent and ambitious. Sometimes it's okay to just be stupid and try to have fun. Jason Momoa Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has soared past a $400 million milestone at the global box office. The sequel, directed by James Wan, has established itself as the most successful DC extended universe release since the original Aquaman in 2018. Initially, its debut over the Christmas period seemed underwhelming, with a four-day weekend of $40 million. However, the tide turned favorable for Aquaman 2, which has surpassed the earning of Lost Summer, The Law of Flash $271 million, and Giant Johnson's Black Adam. Despite a reduction in theater count from the film's added another $2.82 billion over a recent weekend, the movie availability on digital platform since Tuesday. Financial a $19 million or purchase $24 million offers fans alternative viewing option, further boosting its financial success. Notably, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom will conclude its theatrical run as the seventh highest grossing film in a now concluded DCU saga. This universe has witnessed its share of less successful venture, including recent releases like Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and Flash and Blue Beetle. The production budget of Aquaman 2 was substantial to $15 million plus, a figure that encompasses additional photography but exceeds its closest market cost. The film's performance has sparked discussion among its industry insiders and fans alike. Dolph Lundgren, one of the film star, expressed his initial disappointment with changes made during production during its interview with Comic Book. He cited a shift from the original script and cut that he believed had significant potential. I was disappointed for the movie just because I thought the original script was great and the original cut. I saw a little bit of it. It was really good. So I did not see my reason to start reshooting and reshaping the story, which obviously led to disappointment in the movie jurors and not just me. Looking forward, Warner Bros. Has an exciting lineup of DC films. Warner Bros. Upcoming release feature Joker for his day on October 4, 2024, followed by James Gunn's Superman, Legacy on July 11, 2025, and The Batman Part 2 on October 3, 2025. In the Warner Bros. Pipeline are several projects still waiting for release date, including The Authority, The Brave and the Bold, a Batman reboot in DCU, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and Swamp Thing, Jason Momoa, Patrick Wilson, Yahya Abdul-Mateen, and Amber Heard lead a remarkable cast in Aquaman and Lost Kingdom, supported by Rachel Park, Dolph Lundgren, and Nicole Kidman. The film highlights the enduring fascination with superhero narrative and the capability of sequel to not only match but sometimes surpass the achievement of their predecessor. This film's achievement underscore the DCU's talent in captivating audiences around the world with a distinct blend of action-packed drama and mythological storytelling. For years after the events of Aquaman, Arthur Curry is King of Atlantis married to Mera and has a son with her. However, David can, despite for revenge against Aquaman, searches for its ruin of a lost civilization in Antarctica. When David finds the Black Trident, the can communicate with his creator who promises to give the villain the power to kill Aquaman and his family. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom had the cards stacked against it. Warner Brothers have announced they are going to reboot their DC movie properties with Superman, Legacy and the reboot and helicaptured. The release of the films had been delayed for a year because of reshoot and due to the highly published dab. Here case there are rumors that the production was looking to cut Amber Heard's role as much as possible. Before the film's release, he released a statement that she was persecuted on set, which Warner Brothers have refuted, and even the people who worked on it seemed dejected. Momo knows there won't be any more Aquaman movie. This era of negativity has led to Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom pre-release tracking being worse than the Marvel. The box office has been terrible, and the reviews have ranged from meh to awful. An independent gave Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom one-star review. Many critics seem to be out to give Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom a kicking and write a load of water-based ban. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom was not even the worst film in the DCU. That dishonors goes into first studio scare film. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom big issue was its derivative nature. It was a mix of ideas and plot from other franchises. James Wan was trying to make Aquaman into an underwater star due to all the underwater laser battle and Aquaman and Orm meeting Jabba the Hutt's underwater cousin. There was a bit of Lord of the Rings and H.P. Lovecraft cosmic horror due to the lost civilization and the Black Trident having a corrupting influences like the One Ring from Lord of the Rings and the Horcrux from Harry Potter. Aquaman even referred to Harry Potter and the prisoner of Azkaban and sure because Orm was locked in a prison guarded by monsters and two brothers with a fractions relationship were forced to go on quest together. Okay, fine, the haters win. The DCU can die because if Aquaman and Lost Kingdom is their idea of good movie, I am not sticking up for it anymore. I got laid off his mouth, and watching this movie was still the least enjoyable experience. I have had a whole holiday season. It's been a long time since I have seen a new film. let alone a new superhero film that offers so engrossingly little in terms of story, soul, charm, dedication, or even basic technical merit. I don't even like the first Aquaman, but it's looking like a masterpiece now compared to this. Hell, the Flash is looking pretty good compared to this. This review is gonna pretty much just be so rant, so let's rant. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom sees Jason's Momo return as Arthur Curry, who's ruling Atlantis while also raising his newborn son on land. But David Can, whose father was left to die by Arthur in the last film, is back somehow. I am amusing it happened in a credit scene, but I don't care enough to took it up and still wants revenge. So he gathers a team to seek out Atlantean artifacts and find the Black Trident that houses the soul and memory of an evil god, forcing Archer to team up with his disgraced half-brother to find and stop him. But really the plot does not matter. Its only purpose is to get from one loud, bombastic action scene to the next, and maybe sequence in a few drops from its dried up ocean of characters depth. That is on the slim chance a film want to take a breath for more than 30 seconds. If you were to look at the story outline on surface, you would find plenty of potential. But the surface is as deep as Aquaman, and the Lost Kingdom is willing to go before banging its paws and pan in your face or spotting some meaningless. The pacing is so fast and leaves its character so paper thin that I could not help but think about how much of the original cut was left in the ocean trench that is the cutting room floor. Characters who have rich histories with each other have disagreeing chemistry. Are people who just met, and our reintroduction to them and their reaction to the familiar faces showing up are just as quick and insignificant. Ken suddenly has a league win a forward at the dude's bidding with no explanation. But even if the cutscene, if the existence were restored, I don't know how much better Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom would be. It still suffers from the first film's tonal identity crisis, not knowing whether it wants to be goofy, abated, suspenseful, or totally irrelevant. Arthur's witty. Dialogue still sound like it was written for and by a 12 years old sucking, and the old charm that Jason's Momo is so clearly trying to bring the role. Everyone also is doing the bare minimum to not be flat out awful, with the sole exception of Patrick Wilson as Orm. He is the only consistency good part of the film, nailing the character's comedic timing, reaction to ludicrous moment, and shift to a more honorable attitude. The story of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom could have had promise. Its core culture is still littered with comic book movie tropes and motifs that I have officially grown very sick of. Hordes of faceless smoke that are not really outright because of main characters' invincibility, world-ending stakes that are just background noise and clearly won't have any lasting consequences. Characters about to be killed but getting saved at the last second. The supposed main bad guy's action being influenced by some cursed object that channels another, darker fears. That last row would not so be bad if the door did not water down. Can's motivation of revenge and divert his plan in ways that don't even help him accomplish that goal. He ultimately becomes just a fool for a much less interesting villain with much less interesting plan. And even his mental corruption is not that interesting or creepy to watch, because that would require some focus on the psychology of his character. But we can't do that because either director James Wan or Warner Bros. Are apparently determined to prove Martin Scorsese's right about comic book movies. Even as cinematic junk food, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom does not taste good because the film is often hideous to look at. The fact were often unconvincing in the first film, but the world's design and color scheme were at least viewed and wonderfully shot. Here everything looks washed out. That one was not on purpose and muted, and even the exact same setting we saw in the first Aquaman have lost their scene of mythical scale and detail. If you have seen a big fantasy film, you have seen better version of what Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has to show you. I was honestly amazed by how few action sequences stood out in a way, and I had to actually stop my eyes from glazing over in distress. There is one dynamically short fight between the archer and Ken near the end, but the rest of the action is theater or just dull. The CGI looks twice as fake as the first film, but without the letters on cinematography to balance it out. When a comic book movie, or really any movie, is just lacking in substance, the bigger crime it can commit is not being at least well crafted or visually interesting. Since its debut with the Man of Steel even 10 years ago, the DCU has gotten a lot of flack that I don't think is always deserved. It's had problems, but I have defended from time to time and for a few years. Was even very pleased with the very where it was going. But in 2023, it spewed out from some of the most medic or forgettable material that I have seen in the recent blockbuster landscape. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is the final film in the DCU before it's rebooted entirely, and it seems very apparent to me that the people in charge only cared about getting the movie done and checking it out so whole continuity can be overweight. If Warner Bros. Really did have the mindset toward this and the years other DC film that paint a very sad picture where it's sad is that one it come to be blockbuster in general. It sent a message that if a film is not getting a sequel and is not part of a universe that's going to continue, then it's not what making as good as it can be. If Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is exactly the film that entire cast and crew wanted to make, then I can only say that their priorities clash with what I want as a viewer and leave it as bad. But whatever the intention were from anyone, this is one of the worst superhero movie I have ever seen. It's nothing more than a hollow mask that represents everything wrong with big studio filmmaking and the comic book genre in the entirely. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom could hit $45 million for this 4-day holiday weekend, or might have less staying power through Christmas Day on Monday and finish closer to $40 million. Every little bite helps and will give us better indications of precisely how well or how weakly the film will play going forward. But regardless of this box office outcome, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is a good final chapter in the DCU saga. Not great, but certainly enough we can say to justify a big screen viewing. Even a high-end outcome suggests hard jumped ahead, unless the sequel can leg out even better than its predecessor and top to $50 million, which would guarantee a final cum net of $500 million, assuming watching in a national sport at minimum. More likely in that scenario would be a $750 million global total, avoiding a disaster and at least sending the DCU on a blockbuster's note rather than a non-event. But even this would be a massive come down from the 2017 Aquaman, which banked $1.15 billion at point to holiday scenario. That's just enough to let generate positive headline for solid year and finish and combined with the Barbie and a couple of well-performing moderate success is provided over far bigger truth about how hard 2023 hit the studio, particularly WBD and Disney. Premier Theatre should overperform for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So if those figures come in very good and should based on potential, then it will be a good sign for Lost Kingdom long term prospect of hitting the high end a potential box office outcome. The problem is nothing really suggests we should expect a high end outcome for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. The weak domestic box office opening is bad enough. But what is the Odyssey's reaction viewer gave it a B grade via cinema score, and while we means good, it also means word of mouth is too weak to expect stronghold or much repeat business. Deep Love Plus is aware a film can type either way with the Odysseys, and a negative is where better hold and longer legs are expected. My guess is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom still enjoys a year and holiday booster through the first week of January. Enough to give it perhaps a 3x or even 4x final domestic multiplier. Wrapping up odds 1 star for the final global tally, a $550 million higher, and it could hit $700 million if it surprises overseas. But sadly lower, and yet at $400 to $50 million is probably more likely a potential outlier result. Within the 16 films theatrically released this year, including Zack Snyder's Justice League as a separate film from the theatrical version, Lost Kingdom needs only about $202 million to be in the shared superhero universe top 10 box office progress. To make the top half highest grosser, it needs only about $365 million. But Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom will need north of $655 million to break into the real top grossing tier of the CU film. From the 2013 through 2017 5 years era, when the films were generating a far better box office than the subsequent 5 years, when not a single DCO to so far managed to reach even $400 million. That is all for top 5 ranking in the DCU will be close to $750 million to beat Suicide Scare 2016 came of $450 million. A figure I don't think Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has much chance of attaining. Aquaman in 2017 was the last film from the original plan for the DCU, and everything that came after was produced during a period of shifting studio leadership, with ever-changing priorities, continued studio executive interference in creative decision, and in DC's leadership in general, such as undermining Watcher Ham by approving things he rejected in DCU projects under his supervision, and a directly resulting brutal downturn in Odyssey's opinion and box office for DCU, probably contributing to broader Odyssey's distaste for superheroes movies, along with the Sony Spider-Man spin off Venom later beat Carnage and Morbius during the same post 2017 period. That may sound mean, but I don't intend to it be. I personally still liked most of even the weaker performing DCU movies, even while recognizing they did not offer what audiences want and expect to earn their ticket per dollar when they have to choose just a small handful of film from hundreds every year. But at this point, it's easy enough to see how a passionate combo of reactionary studio choices and artistic uncertainty led to those films mostly underwhelming in storytelling and thus flopping theatrically. Whether it's too late or not for the Aquaman sequel to recover and add at least a final moment of collective enjoyment after the DCU is it right off into the sunset. We will find out soon enough when we have to full worldwide box office data for the weekend. It all beings on whether Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom suffered the same lack of home to be motivated audiences and earned those dollars as a previously DCU release, to which audiences have thus far replied with a B grade. Probably a case of that overseas viewer concern. For myself, I think B is probably the correct grade, but I also think a B grade is not, or rather, should not be as bad as it apparently is for most audiences. It's contextual, sure, but a B level action packed visual spectacle, on par with the best summer popcorn releases in live action family friendly superhero cartoon. Storytelling delivered at Christmas on the biggest screen possible is a sort of eye candy escapism I can get behind. Plus, if you need some messaging, it reminds you that melting the planet with understanding global warming is bad and probably going to get us all killed if we don't stop being lazy and seeking cheap feel good solution that requires a little or no actual change in behavior or consumption. And we do get a bite of fun pre-parenting moment early on, plus the emotional stake of uniting the hero's family, plus a villain driven by revenge over the loss of his own family, plus a brother team up that reverses everything about the first film's relationship and characterization in exchange for some sibling kidnapping. But all of that gets surface level attention, and have to satisfy that it exists within the film, so the story can get to what it's meant for, and that is running around the world from one action set pieces to another, full of strange creatures and imitable brightly colored CGI fights. Your mileage may vary, but it is worth noting that I love the first Aquaman, which I will never tire of pointing out is basically exactly the film I described wanting several years earlier. Right down to the suggesting Momo setting, and so I was happy to revisit that world and those characters, even in a lighter and less inspiring story, and with far less emotionally effective arc. In a more crowded marketplace of those other goods or great films, then Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom might be a toward sell, even to me. But directly James Wan is one of the best at what he does, and he gets everyone's of the entertainment value and excitement out of it. There's a ton of CGI and action. Last Kingdom plays all of the greatest hit from the first one. If the selection were made based on words loaded and easy as for your audiences to sing along. In those ways, then if you are going to pay to see movies at premium theater, then it should probably be a film like Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom, which delivers that those formats are made to be best. I signed it Holy Sanma made personal favorite choices for viewing. So I got to see a Lost Kingdom with an amazing tree, each on eye-popping visual, gorgeous color. The cast are returning in fun form. Momo leans more into the surfer dude mixed with biker dude. Vibe loves considerably more often and reminds us why his superhero business is also easy for him. Patrick Wilson is before this time around, but he's personally stoned down to slightly creepy. No pun intended and just a bad misunderstood in his. I should be a ruler and destroy all who challenge me perspective. It's what happened with Loki and follows a frustrating trend in superhero movie. Lately to try to redeem every villain as quickly as possible. Luckily Vision is good enough and the team up fun enough that we usually don't mind overlooking these problems long enough to enjoy the experiences. But the film is a big hit precisely because it misses so many great opportunities is an effort to set away characterization and deeper arcs in favor of faster pacing and action sequences. This is a perpetually recurring but entirely false impression in Hollywood. Thinking audiences want is more of the spectacle and the effects, and that it should come at the expense of characters and an emotional stake. But reaction is rarely enough to sustain without enough audiences. Investment in the characters and in their journey. More about the first Aquaman film got to right in the character storytelling. It was missing in the sequel, and what would have delivered it into a great range. The best part of the entire film is the eye of the material, is Black Manta. He is born villain with higher aspiration, and every time he is on screen, I was reminded of why I love the Aquaman world so much. The secondary villain, Cortex, is honestly no match for Abdul Mateen's needing anger and self-certainty that he will kick every bird that gets in his way. What's missing in better examination of Black Manta being pulled in different direction by Cortex with competing voices in his head, weighing for control and power. Amber Heard and Nico's Kidman get some sporting screen time and show up in a few key moments to participate in the action spectacle and save the day. But he is definitely reelected to a smaller role this time around. Wilson San as Aquaman's sidekick inherently displays here, but I hope Mira's much more limited. Role was understood a reaction to the anti-weird toxicity among segment of obsessively hostile, hateful and most dialectic fan. Unfortunately, I am not in the mood to give benefit of the doubt to studio leadership at this point. As this film was not under Gunn's hand, Safran's supervision, and was more affected by WBD oversight. The entire park makes the most of his screen time as Dr. Shin and gets more of an arc with sporting subtext to walk him through his evolving perspective than anyone else in the film. It's an odd choice to place the burden of earned redemption on Park's scene while mostly relying on a few overt moments and brief dialogue exchange to redeem Wilson's own Eka, but that's indicative of why Lost Kingdom somehow is essentially a redo for the first film, with just enough to feel fun too little to care much about it all find it fun. And if you enjoy the first Aquaman, you will probably like Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Even it will feel like a slimmed down continuation of the film is a subtle couple of lingering arc and question, tying things up and giving you one last trip around Atlantis to admire the cool visual. It won't bring as much emotional satisfaction and everything shine just a bit less. But it's the last chapter of the DCU to tries to at least remind us one last what it was like when we still cared and could still have a good time in this world of superheroes. It was a bumpy ride out, and at long last we finally have James Van Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom Arthur Curry may have taken his place as King of Atlantis, but the lingering threat of Black Manta. It means he must team up with the estranged brother Orm to protect the Seven Seas. Sounds like a great setup for another hilarious story. Ragnarok-esque sibling team up, right, but not without a lot of cover. Sometimes when a TV pilot does not do its job of grabbing your attention, you will hear that you need to watch a few episodes before things get good. The first 30 to 45 minutes of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom are the cinematic equivalent of this phenomenon. Movies sometimes take a little while to get going. Sure, but there's a bit more than story issuing going on here. The first Aquaman and much of Lost Kingdom work because, while it's not the best movie, Jason Momoa is having the time of his life, so the audience has fun too. Let me tell you, the show does not feel like Momo is having the time of his life in the first act. Once you get past that first slog through, things get fun for a stretch. Orm and Archer have the exact brothers dynamic you would expect, which yields quite a few funny moments thanks to Wilson's and Momo's own second effort. They are the heart here. As was Ben's intent from the beginning, none of this came at the expense of Amber Heard's Mira. She has a smaller role to play because Lost Kingdom is more beauty comedy than rom-com, but she is still a key player in the story alongside Nicole Kidman's Atlanta. At the risk of beating the dead seahorse of the Lost Kingdom's early struggle, Atlanta's story is done in a way that left me questioning whether or not he was misremembering the end of Aquaman and she had simply chosen the sea over Arthur's father. She did not, they are still very much in love, but Atlanta and Tom's story is one of several of what I can only assume were Latin game story adjustment despite the Lost Kingdom focus on family. Arthur and Mira surprisingly do not fall into the same trap, which only goes to highlight that a few establishing shots go a long way toward ensuring your audiences understand a relationship while still allowing both characters to act independently without confusion. Of course, this is an Aquaman film. If you start digging in too deep or asking too many questions, it's all going to unravel. The same can be said for Black Manta story. But Abdul Mateen does a solid job with the material he is given, and like the rest of the Lost Kingdom, it's decent enough if you just sit back and enjoy the ride. The first Aquaman works in spite of itself because it's fun and silly, and there's a tone that Lost Kingdom mostly nail just as well. The sequel also retains its predecessor scene of deep sea spectacle. There's a level of wonder to the auction space and what below the surface that kept me engaged with Atlantis and its surrounding. But the visual beauty mostly begins and ends with a landscape and underwater civilization. The Lost Kingdom was screened for critics in IMAX 3D, so viewing experiences may vary, but many of the Antagonists, the hottest Black Manta, excluded, are so unattractively rendered that I snorted loud enough to make the security guard next to me laugh. They look bad. They may look worse because the sceneries around them is so bright and crisp, but it's definitely a distraction. The first fight scene falls into the ugly category as well, but it's unclear if it's because it was shot late and if VFX teams were under crunch despite a year-long delay. It's so Aquaman and the Lost Kingdoms credit that it has no interest in saying farewell to its own shared universe, a continuity that began with the Man of Steel in 2013 and draws to close with his movie in 2023. In fact, it mostly just fired at the CEO on its way out the door. Say what you will about what is now concluded chapter in DC. Cinematic history deserves or does not utter Curie going out on this own term with a complete disinterest in what it really means for the franchise is both incredibly on brand and objective funny. When Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is being an Aquaman story and leaning into the silliness and family aspect of it all, it's fun. The enjoyable bites are just sandwiched between some ugly effect and a wild first act that feel cobbled together from a very different movie. The relationship between Orm and Arthur, and the rapport between Justice Momo and Patrick Wilson, help the story and is unquestioningly this best part. It's a shame that the dawn of James Gunn's DC cinematic universe means we will probably never see them again. To be fair to returning Van, this is not the movie he was supposed to make prior to the dread doors of DCU becoming official. Van had planned to go back to his horror road with the trench and creepy monsters-filled spin-off from the first film, before eventually circle back around to a full-blown Aquaman follows up. However, once the trench was shelved, after the overall French Empire did, a fraction of the spin-off ideas got recycled here into the titular Lost Kingdom. A thread so laughably undercooked that it actually does not even get mentioned by name until the third act of the sequel, adding to Van's filmmaking woes. In the Civil Studio mentored she shows are not one but two different Batman cameos being filmed, courtesy of Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton, respectively, only for both to be left out of the film's final echo. Along with the whatever shared universe plot thread they were supposed to introduce, what was not cut from the film, much to dismay of certain corner of the internet, is Amber here as Mira, Aquaman's wife and mother to their newborn son. While Van and Co were in post-production on the film, the actress found herself embroiled in a nasty, highly public court case with ex-Johnny, leading to call for her to be dropped from the project entirely. The powers that be did not relent, but they may as well have heard Mira has plenty of screen time here, but she is so divided of dialogue, personality or narrative agency that she could be forgiven for thinking the characters was a poor age-generated replacement. Meanwhile, Momo's Archer Curie, aka Aquaman, is a font only despite end of the acting spectrum. The film's admittedly charming opening does well to establish his new status both a first time and a superhero turned reluctant after Archer finds himself frustrated and bored with the bureaucratic monotony of running an underwater kingdom that won't even make itself known to be surfaced. Momo is clearly having a blast in his role. Momo does get a more malika when paired with the Patrick Wilson's arm. Yes, Aquaman's brother and former rival is back, as Evans failed force the four hero to break arm out of the very prison he sent him to at the end of the first film. This scenario gives us the arguably the film's high point as a two bickering sibling. Wilson's effectively playing the certain man to a snaky Momo are forced to work together to survive, and they are helped by a hyper-intelligent octopus spy. Just roll with it. That if aforementioned events precipitating this jailbreak also sees the return of Yaja Abdul David Khan, aka Black Manta, out for revenge after requirement section led to the death of his mercenary daughter in the first film. Black Manta finds himself elevated here to the capital supervillain status world of his comic books road from stumbling upon lost Atlantis technology and a mysterious Black Trident with magical ability.